So Joe Biden, he famously said, if you don't vote for, if you're having trouble deciding about voting for me or Trump, you ain't black. He also said the NAACP's endorsed him and all this stuff. He's lied about all of it. He said the crime bill didn't increase incarceration. He lied about it. He still defends the crime bill. All that stuff he did in that. He's a sociopathic liar, Joe Biden.
Wow.
Sociopathic liar. Sociopath. That's not hyperbole. I'm not exaggerating. That's why that term was invented. Sociopathic. It's for him. Here he is talking about those people. You tell me who he means when here he is talking about putting them in prison, those people. And who's he mean? Let's listen.
Must take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society.
Doesn't matter if they're the victims of society. Let's just lock them up. Let's not give them education or health care. Let's lock up their fathers and their uncles and their brothers and say, let's lock them up and then lock them up too. Doesn't matter if they're a victim of racism, institutional, doesn't matter. Lock them up. Here's what he says.
The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons.
Now, this is called demonizing the other. That's what this is. So there's a class of people out there that are animals and they're violent. And it doesn't matter that our country has institutional racism and treated them poorly and they are victims themselves. It doesn't matter. I don't care about them. I want them in prisons. I want them locked up in cages.
I want to ask, what made them do this? They must be taken off the street. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people.
Beyond the pale. Which is ironic because that's what Kyle Kalinske says about Joe Biden. Can't vote for a Democrat anymore for president because he's beyond the pale. Can't vote for Joe Biden. He's beyond the pale. And now that's what he's saying about citizens who he even admitted we created. Doesn't matter if we created them. Now they're monsters. And they're beyond the pale. Did any of those people ever torture someone, Joe? Because you did. Did any of those people that are beyond the pale kick desperate people out of their house in the middle of a recession created by Wall Street and your deregulation? No, none of those people did, but you did. Did any of those people build cages to put immigrants in? Because you did. Now who's the animal? Who's beyond the pale? It's Joe Biden.
The pale. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society, try to help them, try to change their behavior. That's why we do in this bill. We have drug treatment and we have other treatments to try to deal with it. But they are in jail, away from my mother, your husband, our families.
America's the world's largest penal colony. Wow. And there he is screaming for more incarceration and engineering it. And who does he mean by them? They need to be cordoned off. Who is they? I think we all know what he means. Does he mean people in the suburbs? Oh, no. Does he mean people in Bel Air or South Pasadena? No. Does he mean people in Beverly Hills or Brentwood? Who are they? And then here Biden's history of controversial racial comments.
Yes.
Well, this one, I know he's going to, this one is the one about the 7-Eleven owners. So let's watch this.
It
Manish, how are you, man? Oh, good to see you. As you know, I got a lot of support from this Indian.
And more to come, I think.
Yeah,
So,
no, I've had a great relationship. In Delaware, the largest growth in population is Indian Americans moving from India. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. It's a fully, I'm not joking. Oh, gigantic.
excited for you. Because you're the one
Thank you, buddy.
You know, that's. I think that is the least of his troubles. Put it that way.
And the other thing we should do is we should challenge these students. We should challenge students in these schools to have advanced placement programs in these schools. We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Way to talk to the people at the Asian and Latino Coalition PAC, Joe. Way to know your audience. Way to know your audience.
So that's what he means when he says they. That's how you know when he says they and them and cordon them off and we created them, but they gotta be in jail away from us. I don't care. I think, wow. While discussing the need for criminal justice reform at a luncheon last year, Biden said people must continue to work to recognize black as equals so that African-American mothers, like the mother of Trayvon Martin, who was shot by a neighborhood watch volunteer. He wasn't. He was not a neighborhood watch volunteer. He was just some jagoff with a gun. No longer have to fear their sons will be shot when they go outside. Wow. Here he is.
I recognize that kid wearing a hoodie may very well be the next poet laureate and not a gangbanger. Ladies and gentlemen, there are too many black men, and I might add women, in prison.
And how did they get there, Joe? Did I just see a speech of you going, you gotta be in prison? That was quite a moment in that, wasn't it? But they gotta be in prison.
It comforted you, didn't it? That you knew they were going to be behind those bars.
Right? We got too many. He says we got too many. Oh, here's this one.
Not the first sort of mainstream African American.
Yeah.
Who is articulate and bright and clean.
Clean. He's clean. Not like those other dirty ones. He's nice and clean. Again, I understand that this is offensive, but I think these kind of things are the least amount of it. It's the overt shit that he was saying. Hey, let's put him in prison. And then he still doesn't apologize for it. In fact, he still defends that stuff till this day. So these are more gaffes. These are more like revealing an old style thinking.
Yeah, because, Jimmy, we all know that white collar crimes aren't that horrible to people.
That's right.
Like maybe a crime that maybe Hunter Biden participated in. Those don't really hurt white people, I guess. But people who are struggling in poverty and have no, I don't know, road to success or have no options. What kind of options is Biden providing for anybody right now? Is he giving us Medicare for all? Is he even talking about it? Or does he just want to imprison more people? That's bottom line that I feel right now. Like, people were saying in the live chat, somebody mentioned, it's going to be a low turnout this year. Who is really going to rally around Joe Biden and go, wow, I've really looked at his record and I got to say, I like it.
So no one. So let's watch this video again, shall we? And break it down.
Take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter,
or my cousin twice removed, or your sister or my granddaughter that I kiss awkwardly in camera, or your prom date, or my brother, your hairstylist. I'm just saying words now.
my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents.
This is hilarious.
It is.
Take back the
my
streets.
second cousin.
It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents, it doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth.
Doesn't matter. I have no empathy. Just ask the millennials. Just ask the millennials. Do I have empathy? None. No joke.
It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to have become
did it enable them to finish a sentence? To finish a sentence?
Become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society.
Yeah, doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. And take it from me, a white privilege guy. Doesn't matter what your place in society was. And I ought to know I'm a white privilege guy.
The result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons.
In the library. With the candlestick. What is it, playing Clue? What is it? Bit my wife with a lead pipe. Who has lead pipes?
So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people.
And, I prefer people who are pale, if you know what I mean.
That's exactly right.
They're beyond the pale, and I like people who are pale.
Yeah.
So if you go beyond pale, that's too dark.
Yeah.
Beyond the pale. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society, try to help them, try to change their behavior.
Try to help them. Whatever. I don't really care. I have to say this part. I have to say that.
That's why we do in this bill. We have drug treatment and we have other treatments to try to deal with it. But they are in jail.
In jail. My mother got hit with a lead pipe the week after I was liberating Nelson Mandela from prison, armed with nothing but a toothpick and an ice cream cone. Okay, there's Joe Biden's racist tirade. To me, this is the problem. The stuff he says on the Senate floor is the problem, not the stuff. That other stuff is also off-putting. But that is disgusting.
From my mother, your husband, our families.
My third cousin, twice removed. Jesus Christ. In prison. So there's your Joey Biden.
Well, you know what? If you ever have a moment and you check out when Joe Biden and Clinton are talking about how Joe worked so hard for this bill to get passed, it just is gross. It just shows you who, for the last 40 years, have been taking care of the people. They've been putting us behind bars.
That's right.
And allowing banks to screw us out of our homes.
And worse than that, take our homes away, put us in forever debt. Make it harder for us to get medical care, not be able to discharge our medical debt. That's all because of Joe Biden. Yeah. Okay.
His conversation, we covered his conversation with the Breakfast Club.
Yes.
Right. That whole thing. And, if you've read the Highlines, he's, backtracking, but he thought they meant black tracking. So he was like, whoa, bam. All right. Thank you, Jimmy.
Hey, this is the part where I tell you where our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then I would tell you to go join our premium, but nobody has a fucking job. So why don't you just enjoy the video?